Hello. Can you guess what percentage of employees in the US that has been in a romantic relationship before or are currently in it? 47%. 47% of employees, that's almost like half, have either been in a romantic relationship before or they are currently in. That means almost half of your workforce could have been in a romantic relationship. This is February, and February 14th is almost your Valentine Day, a time when people celebrate love. So let me first wish you a happy Valentine. But think about it. For most people, Valentine is about romance and romantic relationship, which in their words could be true. But it's also important to ask ourselves, are there issues in the workplace arising from romance? If 48% of employees have been in romantic relationships or were or are in romantic relationships, is it important for us to talk about it? So, my goal is just to do a very short video to help workers, managers, entrepreneurs, and workplace leaders, including my colleagues in HR, to know how to deal with this. My goal is to take a risk management approach to this issue. Now, remember, workplace romance is personal and could be between two individuals, but it has implications for the workplace. It could affect productivity, it could affect motivation, it could also lead to allegations of favoritism and other things. And if the relationships go south and the couple have a fight, it could lead to allegations of harassment or even intimidation or even something worse than that. So my goal is to ask, what should you do about it? But let me start by saying I think I can identify 10 different types of workplace romances that can happen in the workplace. 10. You want that 10? Yes, 10. I'm going to start. Number one is when now, the way I'm going to discuss this is in the decreasing order of risk to the workplace. So I'm going to start with the most risky to the workplace and then come down to the less risky one. The first one is the most risky, and that's when there is a romantic relationship between a senior executive and a junior employee. So in this case, a CEO or somebody in the executive staff has a relationship with somebody that is junior. That is the most risky one. Number two is the kind of relationship between a supervisor or a manager and a subordinate. That's a kind of romantic relationship where a manager has with a subordinate. Second riskiest one. Number three is between an employee and a client or a vendor or a regulator and an operator. So think about NCC, the regulator of the telecoms industry, for example, in Nigeria, having a relationship with somebody in MTN or Airtel. That is the third riskiest one. Number four type of relationship that we should think about when we're talking about risk is when there is extramarital affairs. In this case, the employee is involved with somebody else in the workplace and both of them are married. They're married to two separate people. It's another very risky one we need to be very conscious of. So that's number four. Number five is former lovers. Yes, these guys were going out in the university or they were going out in their former workplace and you hired them separately and then they resumed. And you didn't know that they had a prior relationship and it went south. If they come to work, you're going to see the impact of that relationship, particularly if it ended on a bad note. Number six is not so risky. It's engaged couple. John and Mary are engaged to be married. It's not so risky, but it could be risky because they are not yet married. That's the sixth form of romantic relationship you may be found in the workplace. And of course, the married couple, yeah, husband and wife. In this case, in fact, this is very interesting because I worked in an organization where the husband was the head of the department and the wife was one of the staff. It has its own issues, but it's not so risky. Number eight is when there are people of the same level in the same team having a romantic relationship. So this is a case of two individuals who are not don't have reporting lines or whatsoever, but they work in the same department. Number nine is a case of where you now have peer-to-peer relationships in different departments. So somebody in finance is having a relationship with somebody in another department. They don't have any interaction. Perhaps they don't even see at work, or maybe, for example, they are not even in the same location. So those are the 9 different kinds of relationships, and I rank them in decreasing order of risk for you to know you have a lot of work to do. And so it's advisable for us to start to think about, so what should we do if it's as complex as this, because it could be very complex. So as you well know, in HR, to solve most problems starts with writing the policy. So what should we do about this? The first thing is you have to have a policy on this subject. Now, some people will call it workplace romance policy, straight to the point. They're not going to sugarcoat it. But some will just call it conflict of interest policy, or they will hide it under their conflict of interest policy, or they could hide it under professional conduct policy. Whatever you want to do, either as a standalone or you want to make it part of another policy, please have a policy that defines this. Now, in that policy, there are 7 things at a minimum you should have. You could have other things, but these 7 things must be present. Number 1 is you must define terms. What do you mean by a romantic relationship? Now, because people have slept together before, they may argue it's not a romantic relationship. So you must define, what do you mean by a romantic relationship? Is it that they are going out? Is it that they are going out but there is no sexual relationship? Is it that they are sexual but there is no relation? You must define what you are saying in clear terms. Number 2 is a question of clarify what is forbidden. You must have in that policy some relationship that can happen. In most organizations, for example, because I said the senior executive to the subordinate is the riskiest, some organizations have policy that says you can't do it. If you remember the CNN case where one of their former CEOs has to resign, that was a particular case. It was clearly written in the contract you cannot have a relationship with a subordinate. So in that case, you must define what should not happen, what is forbidden. In some cases, they will say things that you cannot have a relationship with somebody that you provide supervision over or whatever. That's the second thing that you must have in your policy. The third thing is what must be reported. So, for example, 2 people are not in a relationship, they went for an event and they got drunk and they slept together. Should they report? They don't have a relationship. You may ask yourself, do they need to report? You remember there was a case in Nigeria where something like that happened in one of the popular companies where somebody got drunk and one of the staff allegedly tried to go and drop the lady at home, and the lady alleged some untoward things happened. So you must also have that policy in place. How do you report that? So you must define what is reportable. And then in doing that, you must define who do you report to and when. Very, very important. Number 4 is that you must also define what is permissible, because by law you can't ban adults from having sexual relationships or having romantic relationships. You can't. It could be a violation of their human rights. So you must also say what is permissible. Okay, 2 singles, if they want to get married, okay, maybe they just need to inform whosoever. You must define that in your policy. Number 5, you must define how off-duty conduct could become an issue that you are concerned about. So in this particular case, you sent 2 employees to go and audit in Ottawa or in Saskatchewan or Regina or in Montreal or in Seattle or in California. They went to do this audit for 3 weeks and then they got close, and after they finished the audit, they did a great job. They decided to go and drink, and something happened there that was romantic. You must define it whether that is still part of what they should report or what is, I said, off duty. Part of this is a question of if somebody is, for example, a sex worker, you must define it because it's off-duty conduct. This is very important in the case when your organization deals with vulnerable people. I personally, as HR, had to deal with a case where we had a worker that was allegedly a sex worker and had pictures on a porn site, and somebody came to report that she cannot work in social services because of that. Off-duty conduct is very, very important. Somebody who decides to be a sex escort, they're going to play the World Cup in Canada and Nigeria and in Canada and the USA, for example. Somebody decides to become a sex escort, for example. Is that your business? Is that your concern as an employer? You have to define that. Number 6 is the question of consequences. Oh, if you don't report, this is what is going to happen. If you report, this is what we are going to do. We are going to do this, we are going to do that, we're not going to do that. And finally, and most importantly, is a question of investigation and the question of harassment, wherein you will put in that document and say, in case we hear of harassment or whatsoever or retaliation, we shall take this action. Or if we hear there is something untoward happening, we have a duty to investigate. If you have these 7 things in a policy, it provides a framework for you to manage romantic relationship. What you must not do is to assume it wouldn't happen. It will happen. These are adults that work together. Think about it. these adults that work together, unfortunately, emotions will come up, interest will come up, shared interest will come up, and there could be some romantic relationship in your workplace. So, as we go towards Valentine, think about it. It's a season of love, but it's also a time to think about the risk you are exposed to as an employer. Are you exposed because of the action of those people? I'll do a second part of this video where we'll be talking about when things go bad in sexual relationships or in romantic relationships. In this case, these people were having charming relationship, or they didn't even have a relationship, and then something happened that came as a result of either sexual harassment or some romantic issues, and they decided to go to court. You will be shocked at how the courts have answered that questions in various ways. So, happy Valentine, and please be safe. And remember, Valentine, romance in the workplace could also be a risk management issue. Thank you. My name is Yomi Faweni. I try to make you understand how the workplace works.